Welcome in, everybody. I'm Devon O'Day, along with Bill Cinque. How are you, my dear?
I am doing very well. Thank you, Devon. I'm here live in Los Angeles. I think Trouble the Wonder Cat, my trusty sidekick, might be roaming around. So if we see him in the background, her in the background, you'll know. As I like to say, the cats have no concept of whose name is actually on the lease or the deed to the house. It's pretty much their house, and
You
I just
just
do the
live there.
laundry. I just do
That's
the
it.
laundry. Yeah. So
Fill the bowl.
exactly,
Fill the bowl,
exactly.
Daddy. Fill the bowl.
I get that
Well,
a lot.
that's it. I love it. This week, I was really thrilled because Elizabeth and I, she showed me her updates on her phone, and
Hmm.
one of the updates is, you know, the Bill and Devon show. And she has a little update that lets her know and has an alert that says, "Hey, it's Tuesday. It must be Dreamcasters time."
Wow. We should all get that. We should all get those alerts.
Well, we're a little bit behind today because there were some updates. Apparently, my computer didn't get so my show, Main Street Today, had some glitches, and so I did an update. I cleaned out just did a thorough clean while I had the little break in between shows. Hopefully, it will work a little bit better
Well,
because today was a train wreck. I just, just
yeah.
like,
Well, I had this similar thing out here. I don't know if it's an internet problem or just coincidence, but nothing went right in the cybernetic world. My natural world seems to be okay, but the cybernetic world was giving me challenges today. So
Well, it is, but it's a good boot into what we're talking about today, a soul inventory. We're talking about. I mean, in the intro to this show, as I put it on LinkedIn and Facebook and YouTube, was have you ever taken inventory? If you've ever worked retail, inventory means you go and my job used to be counting the jeans in the jean wall
mhm.
in each size and to know what was there and what needed to be reordered, what needed to be reorganized, refolded so that you could see the sizes and that kind of thing. That was taking inventory, taking account of what you have and have not. And you brought up something this weekend to me that I really had never thought of or seen before was taking soul inventory. Can you tell us what that is?
Yeah, it's the kind of thing where this is one of those topics where it's like pulling at the loose thread on your sleeve and suddenly you unravel the entire sweater, right? Because it goes on and on. But essentially, there's something called a soul inquiry. Uh, and what that means is if I use the term listening to the whispers of your soul, okay,
Mhm.
they're not always negative, and that's the first thing we have to say. This works in both directions, but the idea is, why do certain things appeal to you? Why do other things just not? Why do certain people appeal to you? Did you ever just meet somebody and just go, I just get a bad vibe? They're not a bad person. They're not evil. They're not a criminal, but I'm just not vibing with that person. Right?
Right. Oh, that's happened. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, why is it that to the positive side, or what could be perceived as the positive side, is there's this job, it doesn't pay a lot, it's a long drive, but there's just something about it that appeals to me.
Mhm.
It's calling to me. Now, if you take that to your accountant, they're going to tell you don't do it because it's less money, right? But something in you is whispering. It's that little voice in the ear that says, "Yeah, but why not?" Take a flyer on this one, as they say sometimes. So the soul inquiry is: can you really listen to what your soul's telling you, what it's asking you? What is it bringing up for you? Now, when you do that, it kind of makes you take inventory. Sometimes you're not even aware that that's what you're doing. But like you said, if you're in a clothing store and you see that there's something missing, if you ever go to the grocery store, which is hysterical for me because I was just there this morning, uh, there'll be 15 types of canned corn, except for the one you're looking for, right? There's that empty space. The idea of taking inventory is, what is it that you really are looking for? And sometimes it's hard to verbalize.
Hmm.
And so what happens is you kind of have to go by feel. Now, that's not mystical, that's very natural, right? It's that kind of
Hmm.
vibe thing. So the reason we talk about it on a show like Dreamcasters is those are the elements you need to be aware of when you go to try to fulfill your dream. What is that thing that whispers to you that says, well, I know it's late and I probably wouldn't stay up to do this for something else, but I just want to finish that painting?
The things we can't quantify, the things that don't make sense on paper. That's what we're talking about. Elizabeth says,
Yeah.
yes, I trust my instincts when my vibes start hollering at me.
Well, that's a great
True.
way to look at it, right?
Mhm.
That's the great way to look at it. What is it that's, um, when you run out of words, sometimes your feelings take over, right? Your emotions take over.
Right.
You know what's going on with you,
Hmm.
um, and you just don't necessarily have the words for it. You don't necessarily have a definition for it, and that's where sometimes definitions can be clarifying. Also, they can be limiting because how do you define some of those whispers? It's very, very difficult to define them, but you know what they are and you know they're there.
I had a really interesting conversation with someone who currently is working and they have a job and they have a career. I mean, more than a job, it's a career and it's helping people and it's whatever, but they're just not happy.
Hmm.
Now, the new job that they have the chance at pays much less, but brings so much joy. It's
Hmm.
like the soul goes, "Yes. Yay. I
Yeah.
love this." You cannot quantify joy and money sometimes in the same sentence. Sometimes it's not about that. The reason that someone says, I was in med school and I decided to leave, and now I'm a professional skateboarder.
Hmm.
You can't quantify that and you cannot explain that to somebody else. But when your soul is lined up with your dream and what you're supposed to do, all of a sudden you feel this thing. And I know contentment is a weird thing to feel for most people because we don't allow ourselves to be in that place where we are contented. Why is that? Why is it so hard to let ourselves be happy?
Yeah. And that's probably a function of modern civilization.
Hmm.
When you go to, I mean, there has always been greed. We didn't invent greed, but
Hmm.
what happens is, this is my take on this whole thing, is when you start, I guess, giving yourself, if you're measuring your self value
Hmm.
by where you live and what you drive, you're on a slippery slope. Um, it always very sound, I've said this before on this show where we don't want to sound like a Hallmark card every day, but being happy is pretty much self-evident when you're happy. Having the big house with the big car does not make you happy. You could be happy with the big house and the big car, but they're not making you happy. They shouldn't be making you happy.
Hmm.
And so when you start defining yourself by how much money you make, or how high you can jump, or how much weight you can lift, you're probably going in the wrong direction. And um, we sometimes looks like as a civilization we've lost sight of that. That's not entirely true. I think a lot of us have found a way to say, hey, this is enough. I have enough. you know there's the other thing is something that I said before, and here I go talking a lot. Here I go talking
No,
more than you. But
no.
when I said before, sometimes definitions can be limiting, right? As
Hmm.
we need definitions for a certain thing. But what I always look at is this: I've done some public speaking with you, and I've said, okay, if I took my own snapshot of my life and I asked these questions, okay, on one hand, and I'm giving our audience some personal stuff here, right? Uh, am I a person who lives in a very nice neighborhood in a 4-bedroom house with a 2-car garage, and I drive a Lincoln and I travel all over the world? People would go, wow, well, there's got to be some level of success there. And I go, okay, now let me take it down a notch. Just to be clear, uh, it's my girlfriend who owns the house, and my Lincoln is 12 years old. Now, then they go, oh, wait a minute, is this guy doing anything for a living? Well, no. See, the idea is, which way are you going to look at that? What are you going to focus on? If they just look at the fact that it's a house with a bright red car in front of it, people say, wow, that must mean something. No, it means absolutely nothing, and it's interpretive. And so,
Yeah.
these are the kind of definitions that sometimes get get ourselves in trouble.
You're exactly right. You're exactly right. Elizabeth says, I'm grateful to have learned that things aren't what bring happiness. Things aren't what bring happiness. Did you hear that? Things don't make our souls happy. That's right. Sometimes the thing that makes you happy, and my friend Rob, who I hope he sees this because he is my hero, has the most beautiful speaking voice, which translates to also a beautiful singing voice. That doesn't always happen, but for him, it does. And he has had a premier plum job in the radio business. Um, and then the host of the show that he was working with passed away. And he is a singer songwriter, and we're around the same age. And he said, I go to play at this assisted living community every week. It's my gig. It's my steady gig. And he gets paid to go and play for these people. He said, and people can make fun of it, but he said, I show up, and for an hour every week, I'm Elvis. He said, I'm making money doing something I really love. And he said, that one thing feeds my soul in a way that he's an author, an amazing author, writer, and has worked at the very top of the game in radio and whatever. And then he performs, and he says, for that time every week, I'm Elvis, and it feeds my soul. I understand that because every week I host Backstage Nashville, and I introduce people to songwriters that are great. And that feeds my soul in a way nothing else I do ever can accomplish. And, am I wealthy? Far from it. I'm like, okay, well, whatever, but my soul is rich. And that's the thing. When you start taking inventory of what you the haves and the have nots, it usually ends up things don't matter as much as you think they will. When
Right.
you get ill and you have days left, you don't surround yourself by your stuff. If you are blessed enough to have people who love you, that's who you want around you.
Well, it's interesting. This is a segue that I had not planned on, but in my musical career, I've been incredibly fortunate. One of the folks I've had the chance to work with over the years is a guy by the name of Denny Lane. Now, Denny Lane was one of the guitar players in Paul McCartney and Wings.
Mhm.
Denny Lane was also in the Moody Blues in the early days when they had a huge song called Go Now, and that was
Mhm.
Denny Lane singing. Denny Lane has taken ill as of late, and we did a benefit for him last night at the world famous Troubadour out
Mhm.
here in West Hollywood. It was just a great turnout by a lot of people, and thinking in these terms that we're talking about, um, when you saw the outpouring of love last night for our good friend Denny Lane, uh, it wasn't about gold records and it wasn't about fancy guitars. It was about, here is a good friend of ours who is in need. The place was packed. We were online, streaming.
Mhm.
People were watching. And when you see that, that feeds exactly into what you're talking about. Everybody there was vibrating on the same frequency, right?
Mhm.
Everybody's there for one singular purpose. It didn't matter what a ticket cost. It didn't matter where you had to park. None of that mattered. Everybody came together for a reason. And that was essentially everybody listening to the whispers in their soul.
Yeah.
Probably a long drive for people. It's a Monday night. Everybody works on Monday. It's going to be a little bit of an expense. You're probably going to have to wait in line. It's getting cold out. There's a million reasons. Like you had to get a babysitter, on and on. For that moment, everybody came together to make this dream a reality. And that speaks to everything we've just talked about
Mhm.
for the past
Yeah,
20 minutes, right? Um,
exactly.
Everybody took that inventory and said, well, wait a minute. Maybe I can skip bowling tonight because Denny Lane needs our our love and our support, you know. So when I see things like that, and I'm looking at my own clock here, that was literally 12 hours ago. Okay, that I was at the Troubadour on stage with some of these fantastic musicians, and it's helping someone else's dream is part of your
Mhm.
dream. I mean, if you're a person who is going to give, if you're a person who's going to serve, that's a dream unto itself, right?
Really, truthfully, Elizabeth says people with happy souls radiate an aura of peace and contentment. At least that is my experience.
That's a pretty
Um,
good experience. Yeah.
and then that's very much truth. I will tell you that Elizabeth has been very responsible for me getting out of I'll call it my comfort zone, but my discomfort zone.
Hmm.
Um, I have a tendency to isolate. I have a tendency to go, I'm tired, wall around, I don't do anything, and I use the excuse I don't drive at night. And I mean, I can drive at night. I don't see well at night, but I can. But the cool thing is Elizabeth did not take no for an answer. And she says, I'll pick you up. And money where your friendship is. And it's like, listen, we got a solution for that, Devon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting
And,
choice of words.
yeah. And
She'll pick you up.
yeah, she did. And we got to experience something last night, again, a Monday night.
Hmm.
And it was the most magical night. And it was one that won't be repeated. Sometimes you get that invitation. Now for all these listening, I want you to pay attention to this. You will get an invitation and you're going to say no, thinking, I'll go hit it the next time. I'll get it the next time. Every single time I have thought to myself, I'll see it next time, but I end up going instead. I am blessed with a night that won't be repeated.
Hmm.
And last night was one of those. Elizabeth said Emmylou Harris is playing, and Sean Camp and Verlin Thompson will be with her on stage. They were just playing songs in tribute to Guy Clark, one of the greatest songwriters ever, and talking. And it was so magical. And that show in that little capsule won't be repeated again. It
Right.
was just a
Exactly.
one-off. It was just one of those nights, and I'm going, I will never forget this night as long as I live. I want to remember everything. But I think about the time you had given me tickets to see Neil Diamond. You were on stage playing bass with him.
Hmm.
And I had worked. And so I had I laugh because I took my young producer
Yeah,
with
I
me.
remember.
And, it's like, she's so precious. And Sam, so everybody remembers social media Sam. And she goes, I just wanted to see you scream like my mom would. And I did. I love me some Neil Diamond, but I was screaming for Bill because he's my guy. He's my guy on stage. And we walked down there, and I thought, yeah, well, I could see Neil Diamond again, or I could go see. I can come up with all those things. That night, I didn't know it was my last chance to see him live.
Yeah. Yeah.
He stopped performing not too long
Right. About
after
two
that.
months, 2 or 3 months after that. Yeah, that's exactly right.
Had I missed that night, I would have missed one of the most magical nights ever to see my friend on stage. That was my Madison Square Garden moment.
Oh, that was the Bridgestone right
Yes, it
down
was
in
the Bridgestone.
Nashville. Oh, I remember it well.
And I looked at that. I go, this is my friend I've known since I was 18 years old, on stage to a sold out crowd, just singing every word. And there you were, being introduced, playing your bass line, you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it was the coolest moment. So I would encourage everybody to take your soul inventory. And are you saying no to something that your soul is screaming at you to say yes to?
That is the essence of all of this. And I'm going to throw another phrase out, something we can all write down. I don't know if anybody's ever heard the expression, the blue mind. Not blowing your
Mhm.
mind, but the color blue, BLUE, blue mind. Um, the idea of a blue mind is kind of tranquility, the meditative state.
Mhm.
You're aware, you're not asleep, you're aware of what's going on. But the idea is when you get to the blue mind, if you can achieve the blue mind, you start hearing things that you wouldn't normally hear. And when you want to really hear what your soul and your body are trying to tell you, um, it's usually in the blue mind state, because essentially, if I'm trying to talk to you and the television's blaring and there's two kids screaming in the other room and the dog is barking, you're hearing, if I can do, you're hearing everything. You're not listening to anything. With that much going on,
Mhm.
you're looking at the television, you're not really hearing it. I'm talking to you, you're not really hearing it. You hear a dog barking, you hear the kids screaming. When you have the blue mind and you can settle all that down, it's as if like you just put your hand up and said, let's try this one at a time.
Mhm.
I'm going to turn the television off and let you talk. Now, in this case, the idea of when you reach the blue mind, it's it's easy,
Mhm.
it's easy to get to. You just you settle down, and that's when you can take inventory. That's when you can see what you need and what you have, and that's also where you hear, um, again, the soul whisper, right, that says to you, "Hey, why are you still doing that?" Or why don't you start doing the other thing? Why, when you know how much you like to draw and you have the pencils and the paper right there on your desk and it's been sitting there for 6 months, why don't you draw? Now, in those moments, those are the moments when you come up with the answers. Those are the moments when something says, yeah, there's no good reason. Let me do this right now. So I encourage everybody to take a look at that blue mind circumstance where you're not frantic, you're not racing, you're not looking at the clock, you're not running out of gas, you're not running into a meeting, all of those things. That's going to take up X amount of your day, and that's just life. But take that moment where you just settle down and say, okay,
Yeah.
really, truly, let me just listen to what my mind and body are trying to tell me. And you'd be amazed at what it comes up with.
Sometimes there's a little exercise that I'm going to point out. There's been a craze over adult coloring books, and I don't mean, your color
Mm-hmm.
pictures of naked people. I mean, there are coloring books with little intricate designs, and you're coloring
Mm-hmm.
and using colored pencils or felt tip pens, doesn't matter. You're coloring. I venture to say that when you can go to Dollar Tree and get a kid's coloring book and a box of crayons. I don't care what it is,
Mm-hmm.
but the act of literally filling in those spaces physically, get your physical busy so your mind can start being unbusy.
Mm-hmm.
And it's what, yeah, Elizabeth says, I have about 20 of them in a pretty little carrying case for my gel pens. Of course you do. Of course you do, because you're the most together person I know. This is what I'm talking about. Taking that time. It's the same premise of the Buddhist prayer beads.
Mm-hmm.
You touch them. The same reason a rosary. You get your physical working so that your mind can be free to connect to the divine, to connect to what your soul is telling you.
Right.
We rationalize our soul out of being right all the time, but our soul is not wrong. The thing that our soul makes our soul happy will make our whole being happy. And I had a dream one time, and I've shared this before, and a lot of people probably have already heard it. I probably shared it with you, but I woke up one night. I work with all these music row types, and they all had expensive cars, really expensive cars. And then I woke up. I had leased a BMW in my dream. I had leased a BMW, and I woke up because I couldn't pay for it. And I woke up literally having a panic attack because I couldn't pay for my BMW that I didn't even have.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought of all of the friends of mine that had a dwelling that was so far above what they could afford, a vehicle that showed them to be more affluent than what they were.
Mm-hmm.
And they took on all of this extra pressure financially just to measure up to somebody else's dream. You only have to measure up to your own dream. That's the thing about this show, is we're trying to get you to get to your authentic dream. And do you know some of the happiest people I know have gone into, I know one right now, and she downsized, and she's got a tiny home and a camper van
Mm-hmm.
and a storage unit. I mean, she's got something. If she wants to store something, she has this little thing. So, and people say, oh, it's so expensive to have a storage unit. Not when you're not paying for a big old house.
Yeah.
You know, she's like, okay, there's some things that I kind of want, and I keep them here. Like if I have winter clothes, I can switch out my clothes. I don't have to store everything, and I don't have to buy new every time. Everybody does it differently, but she's so happy because she can go where the weather, she says, I'm of an age, I like to go where the weather is temperate for my condition,
Mm-hmm.
what I like. She says, if I want to be warm and on a beach, I can go and be warm on a beach. And I thought, and she is, I go, she's my new gypsy hero. I just love her. I go, doesn't that sound amazing not to have all the stuff? And I just want to encourage everybody to find the dream that is authentically yours, and do not be swayed by somebody else's dream, because their dream, you have no idea what shoes they walk in on a day to day.
Agreed. Well, that your friend with the camper and the tiny house, that's absolutely brilliant. You know, they have whatever they want and they have whatever they need, and that's the essence of being happy, right? You know, so she found the key. You know, she figured that one out.
She found the key.
Yeah.
And I have been taking inventory of my own home and getting rid of stuff like it's on fire. And it's amazing what you can free your life up. You know, I have 4 big roasters for like turkeys and roast and stuff like that. I am one person. Do you know the times I've used these roasters? One time. And I roasted a turkey that was given to me for me and my dog.
Yeah.
My dog loved it. I mean, he thought, I don't know what you're doing, but to keep doing it, Mom. But I go, why do I need 3? No, you know, so look at your life and what can you let go of, because there's freedom as you create space.
Yeah. Well, you could fill that same space with the stuff that you want and need. You know, that's the thing. It's not downsizing doesn't mean you might have less stuff, but if you have less stuff and more freedom, or less stuff and more room, less stuff and more money, that's a pretty good trade. That your balance sheet looks good, you know. So I think that's brilliant. I'm looking around the room that I'm in right now, and it's about time to take a little inventory on my own.
Well, that's what happens. We start looking at our own, you know, I will say I did listen to an audiobook. It's an unscripted audiobook called Declutter Like You're Dying, which sounds like a very, very morbid thought. It's really not. It's very freeing. You go, for me, not married, no kids, I go, who am I going to leave this to?
Yeah.
Nobody. I had a friend that got rid of her yearbook, and I went, that's sacred. Why would you get rid of your yearbook? And I thought, because when you're gone, you're gone.
Yeah.
And if you're moving and you don't have space and you go, how many times have you looked at your college yearbook or your, high school yearbook or what? How many times in the past 25 years have you gone to the bookshelf and looked through it just to see?
Mm.
And it's an interesting thing, is the thing that you can start decluttering like you're dying.
Yeah.
And that's kind of a morbid thought until you really start thinking about it and you go, wow, you clear out space to live.
Yeah. Well, that again, what you're defining right there is the blue mind, right? When you get to that spot where you can say, wait a minute, let me take the morbidity out of this. Let me just think about this for a second. It makes sense. And it would probably
Absolutely.
work for me. So,
well, we have come to the end of a broadcast day. I hope that we've given you some stuff to think about. Dreamcasters is every Tuesday in the noon-ish time. And we love that you join us. Be kind enough to share this if you found something that you liked and you appreciated. And Bill does one-on-ones with hypnosis. And if you're having trouble with decluttering your brain a little bit and focusing on something that you've always wanted to get accomplished, maybe you just need some help finding the thing that your soul resonates with. You're really good at that with hypnosis, aren't you, Bill? I
take great pride in that. I do it all the time. And talk about a dream come true is when I can help a client with that stuff. That's a pretty good feeling. I don't mind telling you. It's a pretty good feeling for me.
Well, I want to give everybody the link, BillCinqueHypnotist.com, or it's easier, bchypno.com, HYPNO, BC, as in Bill Cinque, bchypno.com. Same website, but one's easier than the other one sometimes to remember. And you do it all virtually?
Yes, absolutely. Matter of fact, as I've mentioned before, online on a Zoom call or some such thing, StreamYard, with headphones in your pajamas works great. You could literally be on the couch. You could be in an easy chair. You could be in bed. And it works almost better. I'm going to say better than in person. When you have the headphones on and all the other noise is gone, it's fantastic.
Well, maybe as we go into the new year, people want to stop something like smoking or drinking, or maybe you have a few pounds to lose. Those are all things that our brain is in control of.
Yeah. And then it'll give you a chance to take control of your brain for that part and get a handle on things. Well,
Bill, thank you for this time. I just love spending time with you. I just think this is very, very cool.
This is a dream come true for me. We talked about it for a long time. So here we are with Dreamcasters with our own podcast. This is fantastic.
You and I used to spend literally, we could talk for 3 hours and not realize we'd been on the phone for 3 hours.
Oh, certainly.
And honest to goodness, since I was 18 years old, you have always been that person that I go, well, I can talk to Bill about this. And here's the cool part. You guys can too. He now has the shingle out and you can reach him too.
Well, yeah, you could join us here every Tuesday for starters. Fantastic.
Oh, and Elizabeth, I'm so glad you moved forward with this dream. Well, Elizabeth, thank you for being here. And for all of you guys that watch and don't participate, the way that you participate is to leave us a comment and to share. Well, thank you guys. And we'll see you guys next week. Take care.
Bye-bye.